11 o'clock. It might be a stunt. It works.
The tense manhunt for a Special Forces veteran accused of shooting his wife stretches into another day. I have new information on the hours leading up to this retired soldier allegedly trying to kill his wife and then vanishing into the wilderness of Kentucky. What we know about what Craig Berry may have on him that is making this manhunt even more dangerous. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Well, hey guys, real quick, I do want to tell you about this app. It's called Upside. It gets you cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, and takeout. So here's what you do. Super easy. Download Upside. It's free. Claim an offer at one of their 100,000 plus locations. Then you pay like you typically would with your card. Verify the purchase, and you get money back. I've used it when I pump gas, or maybe I'm doing takeout one night, just searching for offers on Upside. Then after I spend, money appears in my app, then I just transfer it straight to my bank. That's it. Upside's frequent users earn an average of $254 back a year. So to start getting your cash back, click the link in the description or scan the QR code and use promo code OTC to get an extra 25-cent bonus on every gallon on your first tank of gas. The authorities who are leading this manhunt, including the U.S. Marshals, are being very clear that the person they're looking for is not their typical suspect. This is someone who likely knows what he is doing as he tries to outrun the law. This is the person we're talking about. His name is Craig Berry. He's 53, and he is a veteran of the Special Forces. I just learned more information from the Army about exactly what he did during his time in the military. What we know about Berry in terms of recent days is that he's been on the run since May 1st, and authorities in Stewart County, Tennessee say that he is wanted for allegedly trying to kill his wife. Now, we'll talk a little bit more, again, about Berry's background in just a moment and what we know about the domestic incident that led to him fleeing. We'll get to that here in just a moment, but before we do that, I want to get to the latest on this manhunt.
11 o'clock. It might be a stunt. It works.
This is newly released body cam video from the Tennessee Highway Patrol of the search. Officers are carrying long guns. They have dogs with them, trying to pick up on a scent as they're working their way through a very rural part of Tennessee that is right on the border with Kentucky. And the area where all of this is taking place, it's somewhat unique, and you have to think of the challenges that law enforcement is facing as they're trying to find Craig Berry. So Stewart County, Tennessee, right in the northwest part of that state, about an hour and a half northwest of Nashville, right on the border with Kentucky. And it's an area that is rural, a lot of wilderness, but it's also a popular vacation destination. So you think about possible empty homes, vacation homes, where law enforcement may also be searching, trying to figure out where Berry may be. This is about an hour and a half or so south of Paducah, Kentucky. And then there's Lake Kentucky, which is a big reservoir that runs there. And the water is a big part of this because, as we'll get into what Berry may have in terms of a skill set in outrunning law enforcement, he is known as a very good swimmer. So this is what is believed to be the last known image of Craig Berry before he vanished into the woods in the early hours of May 1st. This was taken by a trail camera, and you can see as we zoom in, Berry appears to be wearing camouflage. The timestamp on this image, 12:13 in the morning on May 1st. According to the first post that was made by the Stewart County Sheriff's Office, they were called to this home in Dover, Tennessee at 1:30 in the morning on the 1st for what was described as a domestic altercation. Deputies say that Berry allegedly shot his wife, then ran. And these are pictures that we found on social media of Berry and his wife from years ago. We're not showing her face. We're protecting her identity. Authorities say after being shot in the neck, she was taken to the hospital. There is a warrant out for her husband's arrest right now, and if and when Berry is captured, he is going to face a charge of second-degree attempted murder. And that arrest warrant is reportedly revealing more information about what happened leading to Berry fleeing into the woods. So let's get into what we're learning about Berry and his background. Law enforcement, they are describing him, frankly, like he's Jason Bourne. Remember Matt Damon's fictional character in that movie series, CIA spy on the run? But this case is very much real life. And Berry is someone who has gone through extensive training in his military career to be able to be in a situation like this and to outrun people who are trying to look for him. Barry is a retired member of the elite U.S. Army Special Forces. He has extensive survival training, and authorities say he's an excellent swimmer, which we just talked about, and diver. Then on top of that, they believe that he is armed. They say he allegedly took at least one handgun with him into the woods, and then even more chilling is the fact they say he took extra ammo with him when he ran. Now, I reached out to the U.S. Army, and a spokesperson told me that Barry was an infantryman and Special Forces medical sergeant from 1992 to 2016. So this was a long military career. When he left the Army, his rank was Sergeant First Class, and he was deployed to Iraq 4 times during his service. The first one was in September of 2003. Then his final deployment ended in December of 2014. And as Barry's on the run, I want you to think about the fact that he was wearing camouflage, that he took extra ammunition with him. It appears this is someone who knows what they're doing, and this situation's just very disturbing. Investigators are being very blunt. They are saying that they're not ruling anything out at this point as far as where he may be, but also they said that it's possible that Barry has had some outside help to get away. It's unclear where that help would come from, but I thought it was interesting that that was specifically mentioned in the Facebook post from the Stewart County Sheriff's Office. The U.S. Marshals, they're involved. They say that Barry stands at 5'11". He has brown hair and blue eyes, 53 years old, and he weighs 185 pounds. Authorities say they want anyone who sees him or knows where he is to call 911 immediately. So let's get a little bit more into the alleged incident. We'll back up a bit to what happened in the hours leading up to Barry going on this manhunt that is making national news. According to Barry's arrest warrant, his wife says that she was arguing with her husband and then things allegedly turned violent. She claims that Barry allegedly hit her in the head repeatedly and then strangled her. Barry is also accused of shooting her in the neck. This incident allegedly happened at 11:30 p.m. the night before Barry went missing. So we're talking April 30th. Now, the good news is, according to CNN, Barry's wife is expected to be okay. The warrant says that when deputies got to Barry's home, they found his car wrecked in the driveway. The Special Forces veteran, though, he was nowhere to be found. Now, this is according to this arrest warrant is obtained by CNN, and the Stewart County Sheriff also told the network that they had Barry's phone with them, which on one hand means that he doesn't have access to be able to communicate beyond someone if he is with somebody who would be right near him. But at the same time, they can't track him, which may not be surprising considering that this person seems to know how to get away because of his extensive survival training. The sheriff also reportedly said that they believe Barry made one phone call to his parents before he darted into the woods. And the sheriff says that Barry's parents have been cooperative. Not only is it unclear where Barry is located, it's also unclear what his plans are at this point. Where does he think he's going? What will he do if law enforcement closes in? And what does the fact that it's been roughly 5 days with no sign of Barry tell us about how successful he has been thus far in outrunning law enforcement? Now, as we've been covering this story, I thought about 2 high-profile manhunts that we have covered in recent months. One of them, Travis Decker, former member of the U.S. Army. He killed his 3 daughters in a horrific story. That happened in May of 2025 at a campsite in rural Washington state. And then you might just remember all the speculation surrounding the manhunt and the belief that Decker was outrunning law enforcement for months in the vast wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. Decker's remains were found months later in September of last year. His body was in such a state of decomposition, according to the FBI, that his cause of death may never be known. Now, the other manhunt that I thought about involves a Virginia high school football coach, Travis Turner. He allegedly walked into the woods behind his house in November of last year, right in the middle of the football season. Authorities, they wanted to talk to the coach on felony charges of soliciting a minor in child pornography possession. An arrest warrant after he went missing was then filed against Turner, but he's still missing as we speak. The U.S. Marshals are offering a $5,000 reward in Turner's case, and that's the same amount the Marshals right now are offering as they search for Barry. And like Barry, Turner allegedly took a firearm with him into the woods, and again, he is still missing at this time. Joining us now to talk more about this is Justin Shepard. You can find him on social media at Justin the Nick of Crime, and also the host of the new podcast, Untold True Crime in Their Own Words. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to be with us here on Law and Crime. I know you're in Tennessee. I know this is happening a little bit of ways from where you are, but what stands out to you at this point? It's been roughly 4 or 5 days since we last saw Craig Barry.
Yeah, so this is an interesting case. And the last time he was spotted was on a trail cam. So even the last spotting of him, which I think was on last Thursday, was digital. So nobody's actually seen him in person since who knows when. I think that's a very tough search because this part of Tennessee that you're dealing with, it's really dense forest. This is a man who has survival skills. He's been labeled as special forces. He knows how to evade. He knows how to survive. He knows how to deal with really challenging conditions. And he has basically kind of vanished off the face of the earth. And I think another one of the big challenges that they have, which maybe this is putting the cart before the horse, is that from what we understand, he's ditched his cell phone. So now they're really just having to do true boots on the ground, grid search, old school detective work trying to find him.
It's always, fascinating in these cases because the US Marshals, are as good as anybody when it comes to tracking people. But he had, it seems, a couple hours of a head start before this search began. Like I know at CNN had that the domestic incident happened around 11:30 the night before. He's seen on the trail camera 12:30 or so the next morning, so like an hour later. And then I know the Stewart County Sheriff's Office said they responded around 1:30. So you just wonder like how much of an impact do those couple of hours make and just giving someone who's in the special forces the ability to get away for at least that period of time.
Well, I think that that's a really good point, and I think that a couple hour head start for somebody like Craig Berry is massive. You know, it's different than say you or I who don't really who might run but don't really know what to do. This is a man who we can probably safely assume knows how to cover his track, know how to evade. He was on that trail cam. He was seen in camo, which when you're near the water where they are, near the woods where they are, that's going to give him a lot of cover. On top of that, one thing that police haven't ruled out yet, or authorities haven't ruled out yet, is he getting help? And
Yeah.
this could be a couple different things. This could be, does he have a sympathizer or friends or connections, or is he even forcing somebody to help him? But in a situation like this, like a meal, a ride, a car, stashing fuel somewhere, a place to sleep, that can make all the difference and put days of distance between him and authorities if done correctly, which this man's going to know how to do it correctly.
Yeah, and he served in the army for more than a decade, and did it so with the special forces, which is another level of military service. What do we know at this point, or at least about kind of the buildup to there's this alleged domestic incident that takes place. We know that his wife, and it's been reported that she's now out of the hospital, which is good news. That she ends up getting shot. Like, is there any other information out there about just kind of what led up to all of this?
Yeah, so I've seen reporting from, I don't want to steal credit here, from a man by name Nick Barris with News Channel 5 here in Nashville. Um, he basically has been reporting that what happened in this situation was a domestic violence situation. Not sure exactly what led up to it, but he confronted her at her car. He fired into the car, shot her. He yanks open the door, comes up to the car, yanks open the door, asks if she's been hit. She says yes, and that she thinks she's dying, but manages to like slam on the gas and get away, which is what probably saved her life. And I'm very happy to hear that she's out of the hospital and on the mend. But in the same sentence, in the same breath, he's still out there. So how safe is she until he's caught?
And kind of going to the point that you made about like now it's been so it was May 1st, all of this happens, and then we're now on May 5th as we're recording this. And it's like someone had, even if you're an elite special forces person, like water and food is going to go a long way if you're still trying to outrun it. And that I did find it interesting that the sheriff's office mentioned that they're not ruling out the idea that someone could help him, because it just feels like as the days go on, if there is no sign of Craig Berry, like you would have to think like he is getting help some way, maybe not even voluntarily, we should know, but in some way, someone else has to be involved, you would think.
I agree with that. The other thing, and I'm going to circle back to that in a second, but the other thing that's interesting that I've seen reports on as well is, was this possibly pre-planned? It seems like with the limited reporting that we have, that it almost seems like a spur of the moment situation where some kind of altercation took place and he began shooting. But if it was pre-planned, maybe he was planning on doing something. It gives him an opportunity to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm going to, need a place to stay, or I'm going to need to use a shed, or give him an opportunity to go stash a can of fuel somewhere or a car somewhere, or, really the possibilities are endless of what could be going on. And unfortunately, we don't have that information as to whether or not it was pre-planned or whether or not he's reached out, which also makes it more difficult for authorities because now they have to delve into his background, delve into his relationships, and start tracking those to see if they can maybe help coordinate a little bit better where he might be.
And the other concerning part of it too, because there are certain cases. Travis Decker is one that comes to mind. Yeah, the football coach out in Western Virginia, and he goes into the woods. I don't know how much of like outdoorsman experience he had, Coach Turner, in that situation, but in this one, the fact he was wearing camouflage, like when you see that on that tree stand camera, um, that caught him probably 45 minutes to an hour after the alleged shooting took place. Like that to me says intent of like, this is someone who's not going into the woods in a moment of kind of crazed mind. Oh my gosh, what do I do? It was like, I'm going to go in the woods and no one's going to find me because I'm wearing this. And then on top of it, they say he took extra ammunition with him, which certainly raises the stakes when it comes to the U.S. Marshals and the local sheriffs and everybody who's involved, like trying to find them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. It seems very intentional, not like, hey, I'm panicked. And when you're dealing with somebody who has, who is special forces with a decade of experience in the military, with experience in combat zones, these aren't people who panic. They know how to stay cool and calm under pressure when things go sideways. They have to. That's how they stayed alive when they were in those situations. So to me, I agree with you that this doesn't seem like somebody who was in some sort of chaotic panic mode running into the woods. This seems like somebody, let me get my camo, let me get some additional ammunition, and let me head out. You're not going to find me unless I want you to find me. And that's kind of the same sentiment that I'm getting from this guy as well. And I agree too with Travis Decker. More so, that was the first case I thought about when this thing first broke, was like, oh, minus, murdering his children. Sounds exactly like Travis Decker. You have another person with military experience. I believe, I could be wrong here, but I believe Travis Decker was special forces as well. And that puts it at, the military training alone puts you at a different level than the average person, the average fugitive. But when you add that special forces component to it, it really, really takes it up a notch.
Well, and kind of to those two cases we were talking about, like in Travis Decker, I think it was May of last year, that horrible story where he kills his three daughters. But it's like, we didn't know what happened to him until September. And then it's like in the football coach situation, he went missing in November. And this is a guy who didn't look like he, was a special forces person. He didn't go through that type of training. And like, we still don't know, here we are in May, we still don't know what happened to him. And it just kind of speaks to the landscape that the U.S. Marshals have to go through. And it truly is, like, it's cliche to say like needle in a haystack, but it really is in these types of situations. But incredibly concerning for everybody who is searching for Craig Berry, and hopefully he can be brought in and everything be done safely. Justin Shepard, you can find him just in the Nick of Crime on social media. You do great work on there. Thank you as always for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Join us now to talk more on this search is Lisa Miller, retired detective, former chief investigator. Always great to have you here on Law and Crime. What stands out to you thus far about Craig Berry?
The dangerousness of him. First, we know someone with domestic violence. He attacked her. Not only did he allegedly beat her, and then when she tries to escape, he takes a firearm and chases after her. But then we can't overlook this training of his and his special forces training, or the training that he received in the armed services, have taught him, how to run. And more importantly, and more of a concern for law enforcement right now, that training has taught him how to evade.
Well, and so we're recording this on May 5th, and May 1st was when all of this allegedly happened. And authorities, they responded. I believe the incident happened reportedly around like 11:30 p.m. April 30th. Then May 1st, around 1:30 in the morning, law enforcement arrived. So they, he got a couple hours head start, and then they start tracking at that point. It seems like a small amount of time, but how big of a deal when you're looking for someone can just even 2 hours be before you get on their, try to follow their trail?
Well, it's a very big deal because here's the reality of it, especially in this particular area. Actually, I've been down to this area, the lake Kentucky Lake, Lake Barkley, Paris Landing through there. It's extremely rural. The terrain is very rugged. And the reality is, for a rural law enforcement agency, it takes a bit to rally the forces. Here late at night, they're not running with a lot of people on their manning table, so they're short staffed. The staff they do have headed that way for the report, but to start chasing a man into the woods in this terrain, they're not going to have usually dogs with them right away. They're not going to be able to go up on tracking. Now we know he dumped his cell phone, so digital tracking, even for the marshals, is going to be kind of tough right now. Um, he had a really good head start, quite frankly. 2 hours is a big deal in that type of terrain at that time of the day.
And I think too of like, absolutely he was in the special forces for a good period of time. We know that is as difficult training and well-versed training as you can get when it comes to learning how to survive and outrun people. But at the same time, I mean, the U.S. Marshals are really good at this. I mean, this is what they do day in and day out. They have the advantage of technology. They have drones. I always wonder in some of these cases, and I think back to Travis Decker, very sad, of course, that situation, but he was military and it took months for law enforcement to find him. But like, how much of an advantage really can it be to have that type of military training when you're going up against people who are also very good at tracking and have the advantage of technology like drones as well as dogs to try and find a scent?
It's still an advantage, Chris, because he knows where he's going. You know, this area there's a lot of vacation homes, there's a lot of cabins. He can hole up quite easily, and it takes time to go through, and the area around the lakes is very large. So, I mean, the playing field's a little more level here with him having this training. The normal guy that runs from law enforcement, they run out in the woods, they're getting tired, they're getting hungry, they make mistakes pretty quick. This gentleman, he knows how to operate on lack of sleep. He knows when he should hole up. He knows where to hole up. So I have a lot of faith in the good guys with the good training. But this will be a challenge for him. Like I said, you can't beat that terrain down there. That's going to wear out the bad guy who's supposedly in very good shape, but it's also going to wear out the good guys and the dogs, things like that. And while they have drones, it's still a lot of area to cover. I can't emphasize how rural and rugged this terrain is around there.
That's a really good point because I was just looking at it from above, kind of on Google Maps and just kind of popping around and like the idea of like vacation homes that someone may. I know it's like kind of the time of year that people are getting in the lake houses, but like that's something. On one hand, it may not be that he's hiding, under a tree or under the brush, and you find a way into a shed or something like that that doesn't have a lot of people at this point. Like that's certainly scary. I think too about what he took with him and the fact that he's wearing camouflage, that he took at least one gun, they say, and extra ammo. It just seems like he is going in with the intention of like, this is not going to be the end of me. As opposed to someone who maybe in a moment, goes out there with an intention to harm themselves. Like, I can't imagine as a member of law enforcement, like going into the woods every day, like how you get your mind right to be able to try and track someone who has that type of training, but also went in with what appears to be the intention to do harm to others.
Right. So we don't know. We know his mindset from his training. His mindset is that of a warrior. No, frankly, the
Yeah.
training of the law enforcement, they have this warrior mindset right now. I will say, it's been a lot of years ago, like 2 decades ago now. I was on a multi-jurisdictional SWAT team, and we went in the woods. And quite honestly, hiking in the woods isn't unfamiliar to me, but when you're hunting somebody in the wide open, that is very different than going and clearing a building. I think I would rather clear a large building any day of the week than I would going hunting for somebody with training in the woods. There's so many places they can lay in wait for you. And then we don't know, we still don't even know if this man is still in the area. He's armed. he has this mindset that he doesn't want to be caught. That's what we have to think right now. He's going to fight. If cornered, he's definitely going to fight. Did he is he holding somebody hostage around one of these lakes? Has he carjacked someone and has their vehicle and is holding them or doing something? There's so many scenarios right now. Plus, the weather's not even cooperating with law enforcement. We talk about the use of drones and how advantageous the use of drones is, but the weather's been pretty terrible, and you sure can't put drones up in some of the bad weather they've been having.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, I'm recording this, I'm in Atlanta. I think there's some storms that are coming through tonight. Like we're recording this on May 5th, you know, and you like, how does that impact? Because I imagine if he's outside, that's not great for your conditions, like dealing with rain. But how does rain impact the search efforts to try and find somebody like this?
Well, it makes going through this terrain, which is there's a lot of ups and downs. There's ridges. There's some hollows, so it makes navigating the terrain more dangerous for law enforcement. It makes it miserable for everybody that's out there. Then you have equipment worries. You know, a lot of the equipment that you're using doesn't mix well with water, so it just complicates everything. So while he's being worn down, we have to take a look at law enforcement. And now we're days into this search. So with the resources that have come in, the supervisors are also having to take a look at rotating their people and keeping their people fresh, physically fresh and mentally fresh to take on this task of hunting this man that tried to kill someone.
Yeah, and it's, you know, tried to kill his wife. I saw from CNN that the local sheriff was saying she's expected to recover, which is certainly good news, but you know, very scary considering this man's training. And what does it tell you like now? So the search begins May 1st, or it's May 5th now. Like it's been 4 days, and it doesn't seem, and this is only based off information that's been put out to the public. We see often that they're a lot closer to something than maybe they're letting on. We don't know. But the fact that he hasn't been caught 4 days later, how does that impact the strategy behind a search for someone like this?
The strategy changes a little bit. I was taking a look at some reporting, and about 7 years ago, in this exact same area, they had a man that killed two people and went on the run, and he was at large for 2 weeks. So the first few days is kind of intense, chaotic. Some organization sets down, and then after like the fourth, fifth day in this area where we are now, they're working on pressuring him, and it's again the use of these specialized law enforcement units that are coming in, their dogs, their drones. They want to keep him either contained somewhere, where maybe wherever he's hiding out, or push him and mentally tax him. So it goes into this more. Let's set up some grid searches. You know, everything slows a little bit for the command staff where they can just start perusing, you know, what's been searched, what hasn't been searched. Let's widen our area, because with his background and being a good swimmer, you know, he could have crossed Kentucky Lake quite easily. He could have crossed the river quite easily to evade dogs. So, you know, they're widening that. They're taking a look at things, checking what resources they need to pull in. It's actually it's not a frantic time right now. The hunt's on, and law enforcement's being fierce about that hunt.
Yeah, and I'm sure at some point, I mean, this is someone who certainly has all the training in the world to have somewhat of an advantage, and maybe had a couple hours lead time before the search really started. But I mean, I'm sure even in your experience, like eventually he's going to make a mistake. You would have to think in some of these cases, because you know, you think of the conditions he's in, lack of food. It's not like he can go to a grocery store, you know, and put money down, and certainly if there's a credit card, it's all over. So yeah, we'll see what happens next. Very concerning situation playing out on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. Lisa Miller, always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.